Welcome to Suo City. This is the starting point of Scarlet Nexus, a brand new action RPG from Bandai Namco Studios. Built on Unreal Engine 4, it presents us with an alternate reality, blending the traditional with the modern. Everything is fused together in one visual package, from the ancient Shinto shrines to the augmented reality adverts of Suo's high streets. The game kicks off offering two selectable characters, each a member of an elite squad, protecting the city against mutant creatures known as the Others. Psychokinetic powers and fast combos form the core of its combat, and crucially, the action is served up at 60 frames per second on the new crop of consoles, PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S. Today then, for this quick look, I'm exploring how PS5 and Series X hold up in rendering Scarlet Nexus at 4K resolution and 60 FPS. How do visuals compare between them and with Series S? And what of loading times between each area? Let's find out. Developed by key members of the Tales series, Scarlet Nexus' most fascinating draw, at least at first, is its visual style. The backdrop detailing of Suo and the ruined outskirts beyond it is generously plotted with detail. The style, especially in the Kikuchiba merchant city later on, draws clear inspiration from classic anime works like Akira. The thin line work helps to etch out patterns of battered circuitry or distant city skylines, all set to a green hue. Really, it's presented in a way that could easily sit on a printed page. The style sets the stage for a futuristic tale too, one where mankind has tapped into special abilities via a substance found in the mind. Meanwhile, of course, it's far from a paradise. Rather, mutated creatures known as the Others threaten to disrupt the society built around all these newfound powers. And so it's up to you and your squad to scout out and battle the Others wherever they pop up. The setup in Scarlet Nexus is simple and well handled. The combat too is well explained, but not without fault. Over the first 3 hours, expect to dismiss a lot of tutorial prompts. It's gradually paced, and new moves are drip-fed via an ability unlock menu. But honestly, it's easy to be put off by the combat at first blush. Even basic mechanics like quick recovery after being hit or double jumping are gated off until you reach higher levels. Bandai Namco Studio's choice to strip each character's moves down in order to offer an upgrade path means its combat starts off as being a bit tedious. You do eventually build up a satisfying momentum in combat, mid-air combo strings, well-timed dodges, even psychokinesis powers. Just be warned, it takes some time to get to the good stuff. Provided you're ready to put time in, Scarlet Nexus does have a lot going for it. The visual style, even the music, are both standout, but as far as the image quality goes, the experience will vary based on your console of choice. Which brings us to the visual comparisons. PS5 versus Xbox Series X up first, being the two premium ways to play the game on console. Right away in this walk through Suo City or the alleys of later dungeons, the core rendering setup is a match on Unreal Engine 4. Each machine gets the exact same settings for world detail, and even pop-in is matched for the big city. Shadows, textures, you name it, these two can't be split. What of the resolution side then? Well, the fine detailing of Scarlet Nexus's backdrops live and die by keeping up a high pixel count. Fortunately, PS5 and Series X each have the power to push a full 4K picture, that is, using a few tricks. We have dynamic resolution scaling, of course, but also Unreal Engine techniques such as temporal reconstruction. Settle on a still frame and the image resolves at 3840 by 2160 for each console, intelligently using previous frames to construct a sharper, more rich image. It works brilliantly. In truth though, PS5 and Series X are each adjusting their true resolutions to suit GPU load. Find a taxing moment such as a finishing move where the camera cuts to a new viewpoint, and you'll track the actual raw pixel structure. For PS5 and Series X, this method shows a lower bound figure at around 2560 by 1440 on each, with very rare signs of a lower number, though in general you'll get a range of between a native 1440p and 4K on each. What about Series S? Now, as you can see, there is a drop-off in image quality on show on Series S, especially next to its more powerful sibling Series X. In terms of visual settings though, it's still pushing all the same features, which is pretty impressive. Textures look blurrier due to a dropped anisotropic filtering setting, but otherwise it's a match for shadows and effects. But yes, resolution takes a necessary hit. We're down to 2560 by 1440 as the maximum target on Series S, more or less the promised spec for the machine. And if we dissect the image at stress points, native pixel counts come in at a range of 900p lowest up to 1296p in typical play. All round, it's impossible to overlook the extra scaling on a 4K TV here. The image will look blurrier, especially so in battle where resolution drops take a big hit. For 1080p screens though, it'll hold up just fine. Perhaps the bigger point here is the state of frame rate. Series S targets 60 FPS much like PS5 and Series X, but seems to have some issues locking it down perfectly. Let's kick off with Series S first as the weakest performer of the trio. At the very least in this first city area, with its vehicles and multiple NPCs, Scarlet Nexus holds at 60 FPS with brief frame drops as we pan the metropolis. Exploration in general holds strong across dungeons as well, and so long as you're uncontested, Series S runs fine at 60. Enter any battle though and the DRS range takes a hit, again to a lowest of 900p, coinciding with frame rate starting to struggle. Add ally moves into any combo, or trigger a finishing move and play starts to shift to the mid to low 50s at points. Nothing wild, but it is a regular sight for most battles. The action escalates as it goes too, more lavish abilities open up later in the game, and it does push Series S harder and harder. So yes, Series S is between 50 to 60 FPS in battle, 60 FPS for most exploration. Meanwhile, cutscenes can take a hit as well, like this early scene here, a case which Series X and PS5 improve on as we'll see later. It's generally in the right place though, but later play could push it harder. Series S at least has the advantage of offering VRR as an option for supporting TVs, minimizing the perceptible impact of drops. There is a fix in other words. Also curious is that many of these lurches are caused by a sudden spike in GPU usage, a heavy attack or changing view to a complex area, which the engine doesn't anticipate. Once the resolution changes, it stabilizes at 60 FPS again, but it takes a brief moment, incurring a drop before it settles. Next up we have the Series X, and well, the good news is 60 FPS is achieved more consistently here. The small drops we see in Sewers High Streets on Series S are removed, while exploring later dungeons flows with barely a blip. As for combat, that's where we still see issues. Again, for a performance test, I worked my way through the Merchant City, one of the more taxing early stages. When it comes to the big showcase moves, yes, sadly, Series X suffers from the same problem. Big attacks are the culprit for brief drops into the 50s, likely as the DRS adjusts itself. Now it's not as aggressive, but it's still not quite ideal. On the whole though, Series X holds up really well, especially given it's targeting a 4K image too. It's just shy of the perfect result which I'd expected, with even cutscenes dropping into the 50s at points too. Last of the three is PlayStation 5. PS5 again shows a solid 60 FPS line most of the time like Series X. The advantage? Well, frame rates are on the whole a little bit smoother. Take this cutscene as an example. Squad members assemble in this cutscene, where drops kicked in hardest on Series S, less so on Series X, and on PS5 only a small selection of frames are missed. It's a step up, if a minor one. We see this consistency play out for gameplay too. While not perfect, the general outlook is of a more consistently 60 FPS game on PS5, with fewer drops into the 50s around big attacks. It's still a nuisance though. Expect a solid 60 FPS game, but as ever, adding more abilities and side characters to a battle will trigger more drop frames on PS5. Sony's machine also has no option for VRR, at least right now, to minimize the perceived effect as there is on Xbox. But yes, as it stands, the issue is slightly less aggressive on PS5 to start with. Visuals are a match and all deliver a great looking experience, while performance could stand to be fine-tuned a touch on Series S in particular. To tie up, let's take a look at the state of loading times. PS5 and Series X are in the limelight here. Most of the areas in Scarlet Nexus demand a loading screen, but neither console takes especially long in truth. For the construction site, for example, PS5 comes in at 6.5 seconds, next to the 7.3 on Series X. And if we take our test over to the underground facility, we're looking at 5.2 on PS5 versus 5.6 on Xbox. Slim margins, clearly, and acceptable on both sides. PS5, interestingly, has a small lead each time, but really it's not enough to notice outside of comparisons here. Scarlet Nexus stands out for its stylized anime visuals and, patience allowing, a combat system that grows with options as you play. The world also is one of the more imaginative I've seen to be rendered on Unreal Engine 4, and it scales well to the next-gen wave of consoles. You get 60 FPS on all three machines, a feature even given to Series S at a target 1440p. For my money though, it's for sure one to check out on a 4K display if you can, ideally with a PS5 or Series X, to truly take in the rich detailing of its environments. But that's all from me today. If you did find this analysis useful or insightful in any way, feel free to like or subscribe, and don't forget to hit that bell to get notifications as any new video lands. To get a high quality version of this video, check out our Patreon at digitalfoundry.net, and to get in touch with myself or the rest of the team, just use Twitter. But from me for now, thanks for watching.